Sometimes you mess up your Home Assistant Yellow so much that you're better off just starting over. And in this video, we'll be going over how to factory reset the Home Assistant Yellow. There are actually two different ways we'll be covering. The first is a simple method that will work if you are not using an NVMe storage device. The second method will be for how to do a clean wipe of your Home Assistant Yellow when using NVMe storage. Keep in mind that you will need an active internet connection during either process. Before factory resetting, and depending on your situation, it might be a good idea to take a backup or a partial backup. If you do, make sure to download it for later restoration. Likewise, consider if you need to backup any add-ons or integration settings like Z-Wave or Zigbee network keys. For the first method, unplug power from the device. Make sure to leave the Ethernet cable plugged in, as we will need internet access for reinstallation of Home Assistant Supervisor and Core. Next, plug the power back in, and within 5 seconds, press and hold the red button until the yellow LED on the side starts to flash, and then release the red button. You may need something to push the red button in. I used a smaller hex wrench. If you have the PoE version, follow the same steps, but instead of the power cable, you'll unplug the Ethernet cable. The yellow will now clear the data partition, which includes Home Assistant Core, the Supervisor, and any installed add-ons. The download process will take a bit of time. I recommend assuming it will take at least 30 minutes before you are able to access Home Assistant, but it will depend on your internet connection. Once Home Assistant is all done, you'll be able to go through the onboarding process as if it was just taken out of the box. If you happen to have a backup, you can also restore it as well. The second method, which is again for if you're using NVMe storage in your Home Assistant Yellow, will need a USB drive. Take note that this process will wipe all data on the USB drive you use, so make sure to take all data that you care about off the USB drive before proceeding. The second method will also require an internet connection as well. Let's first prepare the USB drive. You'll need to have the Raspberry Pi imager installed. If you don't have it installed yet, you can find the link for it in the description below. With the Pi imager open, select Choose OS, Other Specific Purpose OS, Home Assistance and Home Automation, Home Assistant, and finally, Home Assistant OS Installer for Yellow. Next, click on Choose Storage and select the USB drive you want to use. The next step will wipe the USB drive. This is the final chance to get any data you care about off of it. Once ready, click on Write to overwrite all the data on the USB drive and put the Home Assistant OS Installer for Yellow on the USB drive. The installer will go through writing everything to the USB drive. Once completed, you'll be presented with a success pop-up, and you can remove the USB drive from your computer. Next, we need to prepare the Home Assistant Yellow. Under normal operation, the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4 in the Home Assistant Yellow has a fixed boot order. First, it will try the onboard eMMC, followed by NVMe storage, and finally USB. We will need to change that with the following steps. First, remove power from the Home Assistant Yellow and make sure there are no USB devices plugged in. The next step will need you to push and hold both the red and blue buttons at the same time for about 10 seconds. This will probably require something to push in the red button. For me, I have a smaller hex wrench, but make sure you're able to properly hold in both buttons before moving forward. When ready, plug the power back in. Within 3 seconds, or from the start, press and hold the red and blue button on the back of the Home Assistant Yellow at the same time. Hold the two buttons for approximately 10 seconds. The yellow LED should not start to flash. After, release the two buttons and remove power from your Home Assistant Yellow. Next, plug in the USB drive from earlier, and plug in an Ethernet cable if it's not already plugged in. Then, plug in the power and watch the LEDs. Home Assistant will take a few moments to start booting from the USB drive. During this time, the red and green LED should be lit, with the green LED turning off right before booting. This actually took a bit of time for me. Not sure if it's because of the USB drive I used or not, but something to keep in mind. During boot, the yellow LED blinks in a heartbeat-like pattern. Once the installer is ready, the yellow LED should be lit constantly. Installation should start automatically after about 5 seconds. If the yellow LED does not start blinking steadily after a few seconds, but instead stays on, there could be a network issue. Next will be to wait for the Home Assistant Yellow to finish installing the Home Assistant operating system. The yellow LED will blink steadily during this time. Once the installer has finished, only the red LED will remain lit. Now we can remove the power cable and USB drive from the Home Assistant. One thing to note is that I did originally start with the USB drive in the top USB port of the Home Assistant Yellow, but it never actually booted. I tried a power cycle, which did not change the outcome of the boot up attempts either. Only after I moved the USB drive to the lower USB port and power cycled the Home Assistant Yellow, I was able to successfully boot off of the drive. With only the Ethernet cable plugged into Home Assistant Yellow, we can plug in the power cable. Initial setup will then begin on the fresh Home Assistant install, which can take a while and will depend on your internet connection. You can browse to your Home Assistant Yellow to see if it's ready to set up. If the page says it's preparing, you'll have to wait still. Keep in mind that this process can take a bit of time. If the process is taking too long, you can actually click on the pulsing blue circle to show the logs. Once Home Assistant Yellow is ready, you'll be prompted with the onboarding screen to set up the Home Assistant Yellow or restore from a backup. Take note that for me, I let it sit for a while, but after about an hour, I checked the logs. I discovered that it kept failing to download during the process due to running out of space. This required me to power cycle the Home Assistant Yellow. Luckily, I did not have to go through the process of reinstalling the Home Assistant OS. Pulling the power cable and plugging it back in allowed things to finish. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, as it tells YouTube to share it with others. And if you aren't already, consider subscribing to the channel and enabling notifications to be one of the first to know when I release other smart home related videos just like this one. If you'd like some smart home automation ideas, make sure to check out my video right here. In this video, I cover an automation that can help you save time and make life a little bit easier with the help of home automation. I'd love to hear about what you find the most challenging about Home Assistant or home automation in general, so let me know in the comments below. If I have any ideas on how to fix them, I'll be sure to share them. Thank you for watching and happy automating.